my good colleague from New Jersey, Mr. Smith, Subcommittee Chairman on Africa, Global Health, and Human Rights.
I thank my good friend, the distinguished chair from Ohio, for yielding. And welcome to the panelists. Thank you for your testimony. You know, last week, Hu Jintao evaded any meaningful accountability for presiding over some of the most egregious human rights abuses and violations in the world. By Friday, the press in China, and I read much of the press, were calling it a masterstroke of diplomacy. At a press conference on Thursday, President Obama offered what the Washington Post called, in its editorial, President Obama makes Hu Jintao look good on rights, excuses for Chinese human rights violations. He said China has a different culture. Yeah, it has a different culture, a wonderful culture. The people of China, as expressed in Charter 08, desperately want human rights to be protected, and tens of thousands of people languish in the Laogai simply because they want democracy and human rights protected, including Liu Xiaobo, the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize winner. The president said they have a different political system. Yeah, it's a dictatorship, and they rule by guns and force and torture. So those excuses were at best lame, and I think they were very, very enabling, and the press in China clearly shows that. But for the UN's part, frankly, they have failed repeatedly. The Human Rights Council, CEDAW, the treaty body, which should have and continues to not hold China accountable. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, the treaty body, has failed to hold them to account. In instance after instance, China, except for people like Manfred Nowak, who did a great piece on torture in China, it is largely just brushed aside, and the world community looks askance at China's egregious violations of human rights. Nowhere is this more egregious, in my view, than in the 30-year program known as the one-child-per-couple policy, where brothers and sisters are illegal, where forced abortion is pervasive. It is every woman's story to be coerced into having an abortion or an involuntary sterilization. I met with Pang Pei-yung, a woman who ran the program in the 1990s, and all she kept telling me was that the UNFPA is here and they see no coercion. Last week, Speaker Boehner asked Hu Jintao whether or not about forced abortion, and what did Hu Jintao said? There's no forced abortions in China. When you deny, and lie and deceive as they do, and that's enabled by the UNFPA, which has a program there and trains family planning cadres, that makes the UNFPA complicit in these crimes against women and crimes against humanity. Let me just mention a few final points, and Mr. Yu, you might want to speak to this. Ted Turner in December at the Cancun meeting on global climate change said that the UN or the world needs a one-child-per-couple policy. Again, brothers and sisters are illegal in China. The only way you enforce it is with coercion, heavy fines, and of course this crime against humanity, which the Nazis were held to account for at the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal as a crime against humanity because they practiced forced abortion against Polish women. Ted Turner said we need one-child-per-couple policy. Upon questioning, he said, but I don't really know the intricacies as to how it is implemented. Are you kidding? Mr. Yo, you might want to speak to that. I have held 27 hearings on human rights abuse in China alone, most of those with a heavy emphasis on this terrible attack against women. This is the worst human rights violation of women's rights ever, and we have been largely silent. The UN has been totally silent. Beyond that, they've been complicit. So if you could speak to that, and Mr. Yo, you might want to speak to it first.
Sure. Thank you, Congressman, first of all, for your passionate interest in the issue, this issue. You and I completely agree that coercive abortion, coercive family planning, and forced sterilization is absolutely outrageous, has no place in any type of family planning programs anywhere in the world. So we 100% agree on this. Let me make two comments. First of all, in the context of UNFPA's work in China, they have repeatedly indicated to the Chinese that they oppose the coercive nature of the one-child policy. And in the counties in which UNFPA was operating under its previous plan, the abortion rate went down, the forced sterilization rate went down, and the rate at which people had access to voluntary family planning went up. What was happening now in the context of China is UNFPA is working directly with the Chinese government to continue to emphasize the voluntary nature of their program.
They're almost out of time.
Okay,
but let me say very briefly, that is contested. And let me also say for everyone, we need to be considering the missing girls. Chai Ling, the great leader of the Tiananmen Square activist movement, who thankfully got out of China, she's running a group called All Girls Allowed, trying to raise the issue of the missing girls. 100 million is one estimate, with the disproportionality between males and females completely attributable to the one-child couple policy. Terrible, terrible crime of gender.